Hey guys! So today I have for you the ultimate Ma Lai Go dim sum sponge cake recipe. It is done in the traditional style with beer and with a starter that takes about 5 days to ferment. So yes, it does take 5 days, but it is a very, very easy process, and the result that you get, by far, I would say that this is the best Ma Lai Go sponge cake recipe that I have ever had. I would put it up against any Ma Lai Go that I've had in restaurants, and this is made with no egg. The fermentation softens all of the crumbs and you end up with the most fluffy, the most soft, the most moist sponge cake ever. This cake is a must make, even if you guys only do it once. So I can't wait to show you guys this recipe, so let's get started. Okay guys, let's start off with the best cake that you will ever make. So right now I have about 1 3/8 of a cup of cake flour. To that I'm going to add, about 1/4 cup of water and then 1/4 cup of beer to this. And because this is a starter, I usually like to have it pretty wet. Just because we're going to be dividing it later for a couple more days. And with the cake flour, it's actually quite difficult to find cake flour here in the UK. So what I basically did was I took about a cup of all-purpose flour, and then I mixed in 2 tablespoons of cornstarch to that. So it's a very kind of classic way of making cake flour if you don't have access to it. So I'm just stirring all of these ingredients together, and again, I want this to be on the wetter side. So depending on your kitchen, depending on your area, you might want to be adding a little bit more water. Wetter is completely okay. Something that I didn't do is I didn't wet my cloth, so make sure that you have a wet cloth because the surface sometimes dries out, okay? So this is day 1. In 24 hours, you guys might want to do this at nighttime when everybody comes home and you have time to do this. So this is day 1, and you can see that, I mean, some of the bubbles have formed, but it's definitely, the yeast from the beer is not as, active as, like your dry active yeast. So what you do right now is you're going to just take half of this. And so this recipe is really good if you have a friend and you guys want to make it, the same time, or you want to make double the amount of cake, but that's actually a lot of cake. But unfortunately the other half can go to waste, or you can, I guess, save it for bread or something. So you take half of that, and every day, I'm only going to show this part once, but again, 1/4 cup of water, 1/4 cup of beer, and then you're going to add right around 1 3/8 of a cup of cake flour. Again, airing towards the side of being just a little bit moist. I always add in the beer and the water first just to get it nice and mixed in before I start adding the cake flour. And if you guys haven't figured it out by now, the beer is going to act very much like your yeast. So you can see day 2, maybe my kitchen was just a little bit drier, but it started forming a little crust on top, and it continued to day 3 and day 4. So I think what I would have done again is to wet a piece of cloth and then maybe just kind of press it closer to the top of the dough. I still want the dough to breathe, so I didn't want to put plastic wrap or saran wrap on top of it, so hence the cloth. Alrighty, so day 4, and at this point I'm getting pretty antsy, and we're gonna do something to this starter. So I'm gonna take about 166 grams of this starter, and I want to say it was about 1/2 cup, and if you have a scale, that's gonna be a very good thing. Make sure not to take the hard crust that's out on top. So I'm gonna go ahead and mix 1½ tablespoons of all-purpose flour this time to this mix, along with 1½ tablespoons of the Bird's custard powder, in addition to about 1/16 of a teaspoon of black salt. Guys, I'm going to do a taste test of this, but black salt, if you add it to anything, it's going to taste eggy. And for this cake especially, it's nice to have that nice custard flavor. And then a little bit over 1/3 of a cup of sugar. So now, I need 2½ eggs, and I just bought your typical egg replacer. It's made with like tapioca starch, a little bit of baking powder, and instead of just water, I'm going to add coconut milk to the mix. and I'm just going to mix that in, and then that will be my egg substitute. Now, using the paddle attachment on low, I'm going to mix in all of the dry ingredients that I've put in first, and then once kind of the dough starts coming together, I am going to slowly drizzle in the egg mixture. And what that's going to do is it's going to create a nice smooth batter. Alrighty, so once you get it nice and smooth like this, you guys guessed it, we're going to cover it with a wet towel and wait just one more day before we put this guy together. Trust me, it is so, so good and you're not going to regret it. Okay, so day 5 has finally arrived, and you can actually see a little bit of the bubbles because the batter is thinner right now. So at this stage, you want to make sure that you have some steamers ready and that the heat is on high and you have plenty of water in here because everything is gonna go pretty quickly. So what I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna add about 1 teaspoon of baking soda with 2 tablespoons of coconut milk, and I'm just gonna mix everything together and add that right in. Afterwards, I have about a 1/4 cup, a little bit over a 1/4 cup of oil that I warmed in the microwave for just about 15 to 20 seconds. So it's just ever so slightly warmed. And then I'm putting in about nearly 2 teaspoons of baking powder in there. And baking powder to activate needs heat and it needs acid as well. So basically I have a baking soda solution and a baking powder solution. And as soon as I add it in here, which we are doing right now, the batter is going to be bubbling. It is going to be ready to go. You are going to be putting it in a really hot steamer. So all of the bubbles are going to start forming and you are going to have the lightest cake ever. So make sure that everything is ready. So really quickly, I have the parchment paper kind of already cut into squares, and then I have 2 of these bamboo steamers. And I love doing the cake like this because it looks so kind of like rustic and earthy and down-homey. So just press both of those pieces of paper in, and this is going to be how you steam it. I don't know if you guys can see that right now, but this actual batter is bubbling. So it is really, really ready to go, and it's ready to puff up and become the most fluffy and lightest cake ever. Rightio, moment of truth. So this cake goes into a full blast steamer. You're talking high heat for 20 minutes. And if you have one of the clear lids like this, you will definitely see it bubble up and become nice and fluffy as it's going. And if you guys can see, oh, what a shot. The cracks up on top are actually a signature of this cake. It means that you've, put in the right leavening. It means that you've put in enough time with the starter dough. That is the way that the cake cracks. I wish that you could see more of the steam. This is with the second steamer, and this cake is so light, it is so fluffy, and it is so moist. I cannot speak enough about it. Like, it's moist, but it is not soggy, it is not gummy, and just really one of the best sponge cakes that I have had. And so you can actually see the steam coming out of these cakes. I knew I had to shoot these ones, super fresh and right away instead of wasting time and making everything look pretty. I knew that these cakes would already do. Check out all of those bubbles and that steam. I mean, I know that you guys just want me to rip right into it. You can see the cracks and the bubbles and that golden brown color and the steam. Alrighty, let's dig in. Are we getting a close-up shot of that or what? Do you see this? It's so light and so moist and so crumbly. I cannot speak enough about this cake. And if you guys do want to use it, you know, more as like a birthday cake or more as kind of like a cool dessert cake, I would actually recommend putting it in the refrigerator overnight just to get rid of a little bit of that moisture. But it was so good eating this fresh. Anyways, guys, I hope you enjoyed this recipe. I think you could hear from my voice that I was very excited about this one too. As usual, if you want to see more recipes like this, please remember to hit that like and subscribe button, and I will see you guys again next time. Bye!